Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Secret World of Events Breaking Out. Joining me today is my special guest, Craig Squires, the man behind the Events Factory and also a founding partner of Hat-Trick Creative. Craig has invited a guest along, Darren Gale. Darren runs Invitation London, who create lots of stationery that can be found present at events. And lastly, I've invited along another special guest, Simone Snow, who owns and runs Novelties Direct, one of the largest UK suppliers of novelties for events. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
Hello.
Why am I saying
Hello,
welcome to you?
thank you for having
I
us.
don't know why.
There you go.
Great to have you all along. Craig, let me ask you, we're going to kick off. You're my special guest today. And in turn, you've invited Darren. I've invited Simone because not only is she a great supplier, she's also a very, very old friend of mine. Since we were about, how old?
4?
I'm going to say 4. Yeah, we go
Primary
back
school.
a very, very long way.
Very long.
Very long way. But Craig, where did the world of events start for you?
For me, first of all, it was never meant to be events when I first started.
Okay.
So I left school post GCSEs. Left school to be a full-time professional magician. You know, have we discussed this before? We might not have discussed this. So there might be new information for you.
I knew that you were a little bit magic.
Yeah, so I left school to do magic full time, and that all started off since I was a kid, 8 years old, watching the Paul Daniels Magic Show, completely bitten by the bug, and then did work experience at Hamleys, and I think it was just Hamleys, and then
Hold on a second. Are you that fella with the one I used to walk into Hamleys?
not with the aeroplanes.
And you do Marvin's Magic in the back corner?
Yeah, I worked for Marvin.
Okay.
So that was work experience, and then post GCSEs, they offered me like a Saturday Sunday job, which I took, and then going into A levels, I wasn't interested in going to school, but I was interested in going to work, so I left and became a full-time professional magician at 16, I think it was, doing events, bar mitzvahs, all that kind of stuff. And then actually what happened was I was going to do the standard booked as a magician 2 to 3 hours. So you do reception, bit of magic around the tables during dinner, and then you'd go home. And I found myself staying and watching what else was going on.
I love that.
It was a long time ago, so they weren't as big of a production, but they were still quite big productions back then.
Especially if you hadn't seen anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And at that point, I had been, I'm trying to remember now, at that point, I'd gone in to see, some of you may remember, a company called Mobsters that were based in Edgware, owned by a guy called Darren Levy. Went in to sell myself as a magician. He was putting me out every Saturday and Sunday, and that's where I saw Bradley Collins, who is a quite a well-known bar mitzvah DJ, should we call him?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be glad to be titled as that.
Yeah, let's call him that.
Yeah.
And then we just got talking, we started hanging out, and then actually what happened was there was an opening at Mobsters for an event planner, and at that point I thought, well, the work for magic during the week wasn't really busy. So I went in and started working full time. And then they started saying, well, if you're doing magic, do you want to stay and help Bradley as the second DJ? And that's how it all started for me, really.
Fantastic. Now, you've brought Darren Gale along today. Darren, who I know and I work with a lot throughout the years. Yes. But Darren, tell us, what is it you do? What do you bring to the supplier table here?
Right. So I design and produce invitations, event stationery, anything printed really for an event.
And your company's called?
Invitation London.
What an innovative name.
Oh, well, you know.
How did you come up with that one?
I was in Manchester at the time.
But you've been in business now for a number of years, haven't you?
Yeah, so this is my 11th year doing invitations.
And how did you get into the event side of sort of print? Were you in print before?
Yeah, I was. So graphic design was my background. I did that and worked in it. And then I loved print. So I always stayed in the design for print area.
When you said you love print, what
I used
is
to love
it the tactile feel? What is it?
The outcome of just seeing something brought to life by print, whether it's foiling or however your spot UV or whatever you're doing to something, just to seeing a vision come to life, in front of you rather than digitally, which is now the way it's gone. But I graphic design by trade, always liked print. Started out designing and being a print broker, so doing corporate stuff like letterheads, business cards, designing logos, and then farming it out to printers and getting it sent to wherever it needed to go.
A lot of your stuff's now done in-house as well, isn't it?
Everything we do now is in-house.
Everything?
Yeah.
Well, that's come on a little bit.
It has, yeah.
Fantastic.
And that's been in the last 2 to 3 years that we now...
Yeah. We're gonna dive into some of your products in just a minute, but lastly, I want to introduce Simone. Simone, tell us about your company.
Right, our company is Novelties Direct. We have been around for about 20 years now. I started as, well, you probably don't even know this, I am a certified City and Guilds balloon artist.
I did not know that.
I knew you wouldn't know that. That's how we started.
Did you do balloons, Craig? Can you do balloon magic?
Magic balloons.
I can do balloon. I can make a flower.
You should.
And a parrot.
You should get Simone on board.
So I started doing balloons, functions, all the centerpieces.
Hold on. So just say that was actually a qualification at some point.
A qualification, City and Guilds.
Wow.
Qualified balloon artist.
Who knew?
Who knew that
Nice.
there was such a thing?
Yeah.
Who knew you could do such a thing? And often when I'd go to people, they'd say, "Can you get novelties?" And we used to sort of try and get people stuff. And then basically we had, so we've got a family business. So it's myself.
Well,
and
there's a
Anthony,
few of you
my
in the
husband.
business, isn't there?
Yeah. So it's myself and Anthony, and my sister and brother-in-law. So it's a real family business. So I get to see my best friend and sister every day, and my husband and brother-in-law every day.
No, I remember. I remember when you
It's
first
fun.
started.
We started 20
in your
years
house,
ago.
right?
We started in the house
And you had a little showroom at the front.
We had a showroom in one of the bedrooms, and the lounge was our packing room, and we had a little lock-up in Harper Lane on the farm where we used to keep stock.
Yeah.
And we literally we built a website, so we had someone build a website for us, and it was almost a case of, oh, what do we do now? Bearing in mind it's 20 years ago and online isn't like it is now.
Yeah.
And within a month of going online, we got a phone call from a marketing agency to say, we are looking for, it was like 200,000 hats, 200,000 this for, I think it was for the World Cup of the Euros.
Yeah.
We quoted and we got the order.
Wow.
We'd never imported anything before. We just literally started. So we went to work, managed to find an agent in China, got the stuff in, packed it all in the garden.
And it's safe to say that most of the events we see week in, week out probably come from you, don't they?
Yeah.
I don't know many other places that supply, unless you're going direct to sort of China or somewhere and taking all that chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've built up a nice reputation.
So now, the novelties now we've sort of it's evolved into T-shirt printing.
We'll come across to all your products in just a little minute. Craig, I'm going to circle back to you. I've got so many questions for you because the truth is, over the years, you and I have worked together sporadically.
Correct.
But I am a massive fan of yours.
Thank you very much.
I've always felt that, I titled this episode Breaking Out because I always felt that was you, a number of years back, like the breaking up and out. You're very talented as a planner. And I feel like at some points in your career, you probably worked at the hardest end of the market, which is with clients that really, want definite bang for their buck, and which you delivered. Would you say that's a pretty fair and accurate?
I think so. I still, to this day, even I think people, certainly my clients, I think they get value for money for the budgets that they have.
Yeah.
But certainly, the point that you just said I would probably say 2007. So we're, 16 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 16 years. 16 years on. And I think that I was able to help pretty much anyone that came to me with any budget.
How do you differentiate yourself from other planners out there? Because it is a crowded marketplace.
It's very crowded. It's a tough question to start with.
It is a tough question.
It's a hard question because there's so many fantastic event planners out there, especially in our little world that we are in. And it's very difficult because obviously sometimes, clients will call and no one's ever honest and go, hey, just to let you know, they don't start the conversation, just to let you know, we've spoken with so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. How do you differ? So it's not really a question I've ever had to answer, to be honest.
Well, you could have said your charming smile.
I could have done. That doesn't work always.
You could have said your experience.
Thank you. Experience. Thanks. I'm going to keep these ones.
I'm going to feed you.
Next time the client, do you want to come work for me?
I've done podcasts before. I can tell. I can feed your lines.
Genuinely, I think over the last 16 years, and even going back prior to that, working for other companies, I've always got on well with 99.9% of my clients. I have a pretty good memory of clients. So sometimes I can see a client that I might have done an event for them 20 years ago, and I'll remember their name, their husband or wife's name, where it was, who did the food, who did the entertainment, the kids, siblings. And that is one thing actually that people have always picked up. I think especially in our events world, once we're booked on as a planner, sometimes up to 2, maybe 2.5 years, sometimes 3 years in advance, you become an extended part of the family. And I think there's expectation from the client that that's what they're getting. And I just enjoy it. I don't get stressed. I think there you go. I'm not a stress head.
Okay.
Certainly what they see anyway. If you ask my wife, she'll be like, oh, you would come back and go, well, it's the biggest event, you're nervous because it's the biggest event you've got. And I was like, but I think my clients see that I don't get stressed. I'm a bit relaxed, which sometimes can work against you a bit with clients. But I am quite a chilled, relaxed guy.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
And I would say very lovely to work with as well.
Thank you very much.
So the reason, I'm going to answer the question I just asked you, which is how do I think you stand apart? And it goes back to my title, Breaking Out. And I think that of a lot of the planners, first of all, I'd love to see you, me personally, on the jobs that I do a lot more. I'd love you to book me a lot more for your clients, because I think that the detail you put into your events, the resourcefulness you're using to create amazing. I've never done an event where I've walked in and thought, it's a bit average. I really feel like whenever I go to one of your events and you've organised it and the lighting and everything, the detail you put into it at whatever level of budget that may be is always absolutely on point and probably banging for your buck. You care.
I think so. Going back to the magic side of things, from the creative side of things, so I am always trying to sometimes just think of that tiny little thing that actually might not even cost the client something. It might be just moving.
Sometimes it's not monetary.
It might be just moving a lighting fixture so that it hits a table at a certain point. Or recently a client came to me, actually going back to Novelties, but a client came to me with which you did film, to be fair, with the neon rimmed sunglasses. They've got a wire and a cable. Now, I'm not going to say that it was my idea to get those sunglasses. The client actually sent me a WhatsApp and said, we just found these, we love them. What do you think? And I was like, great. It wasn't until I went around and did the meeting that I was like, we're not going to hand them out at the end of the night. They're going to be on the table so that when guests come in, the table is lit.
Yeah.
It's being self-lit by
because it was a neon-themed looking party.
Yeah, 65
it was a great party.
pairs of lit blue neon sunglasses sat on the napkins on the kids' table on a long table. So it looked awesome.
It looked amazing.
It looked really, really good. But that didn't cost. There was no extra cost for that.
Yeah.
There was a cost in what they were already spending on the actual sunglasses themselves. It was, my concept of it. I didn't go, well, I'm going to charge you for that idea.
See, I think that good people can come up creatively with good ideas that don't necessarily cost the earth, but it's just about the detail and the thought that goes into it.
Honestly, it's 100% you're right. It's that coming out of an idea or something creative with something that's already going to happen and be in place, or what may have already been budgeted for.
Yeah. Let's take a little look. Sorry.
I was just going to say, no, I think also, for Craig, and also I think people just like it if you show that you care about their function.
1,000,000%.
Even if it's, recently we printed some T-shirts. I wasn't happy with the font that they'd chosen for the names at the back of the hoodies. And I messaged the client to say, look, it's not working as well as I'd like it to. Can I suggest this? And they just thank you so much for taking time out to it's just showing you care, and it's not just another job.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Agree. I think we all agree on that. There's, I did send you a video clip. I don't know how easy it is to bring up that, but it's a prime example of what we just said. But it was with a bar mitzvah girl on stage with.
Well, I've got all the video clips, but I've got them all in a row here. So
okay, fine. So when we come to it, I might throw back to it because that was a prime example of just a tiny little design touch that didn't cost the client a penny. And that was I'll explain what it is because
which party was it?
It was the marquee one. You did the hearts for me.
Oh, okay. I can probably find that really quickly, actually.
So.
Let me have a little look through. Well, I've got a few bits and pieces. Why don't we just start where we started?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely bits of neon. So you design all of this, don't you? Do the design, the production?
Yeah. So on this occasion, this would have been a client that came to me, and with the exception of the photographer on the night, everything was put forward within a budget that I was given to the client, that I gave to the client, and then so in essence, I was the only supplier really in their eyes. And this was at Loft Studios, which is a great venue. In Scrubs Lane. Doesn't get used a huge amount. The merch stand concept, which I love.
See that quite a lot now, but I still think it's great.
But there's a reason why I think it's great, and the reason why is I would say that, with T-shirts, baseball caps, flashing novelties, etc., from Novelties Direct, you're talking about could be up to £2,000 worth of merch there with T-shirts, hats, and everything.
Yeah,
and to give it away 45 minutes at the end of the party, which is norm.
Yeah, standard dancers go on the dance floor, dish it out.
To me, is like, well, it's 45 minutes. It goes on for, by the time they've got it on, they've got it on for like half an hour before the party's end, by the time it's all been handed out. So this was just an idea, again, for this client that, well, if someone wanted to wear a T-shirt or a baseball cap, as soon as they walk in, let them.
Yeah.
If they want to put a pair of sunglasses on, let them.
Yeah.
This was us running out of space to put empty flight cases. No, it wasn't.
It was always meant to be. All branded.
No, it was meant. It was always the plan. So that was an engagement party.
Is that a clear roof marquee?
It is a clear roof marquee.
Great when it's sunny, and then a nice clear sky at night.
This was this time last year actually, and it was as cold as it is today when we're filming this in January. But it was so warm in there; it was lovely. So again, this was a marquee that we did.
This is the hearts you're talking about.
Yeah. So this was a marquee. Again, neon's quite a popular theme at the moment, which I don't know why. Maybe Darren can explain.
Comes around, doesn't it?
Yeah, it goes through phases.
We're going through a bit of a neon phase, and
we've had the
in the private market at the moment. I would say.
How do you all handle? It's a question I'm asking everybody on the show because I think it's an important one. For anybody watching the podcast or listening on any of the podcast channels, I think they're always interested in those sort of tips and tricks. And I think one of the biggest things that have been pointed out to me on the show that people are enjoying is how everybody approaches budgets, because everybody has varying different budgets across the board on events. It doesn't matter what level of the market it is. But how do you guys all specifically approach the event conversation with the budget in mind?
Right. So with us, we have a meeting and we brainstorm ideas and try and get a bit of direction from the client. Whether it's a wedding, bar, bat mitzvah, you try and get the kids involved as well, which I love. Like when they're enthusiastic about it and their event, and they want to, give their ideas to us, which we try and take on board as well. But when it comes to budget, you just go through what their expectations of what they want, but then.
I would imagine, Darren, though, for you, you've got a box of assorted stuff over there.
Yep.
It would be very easy. So bring a couple out and let's have a little look at some of your wonderful creations. And it's very easy for you to say, hey.
So talking about something that is, where am I going here? I'm over there, right? Okay. So which is, very effective, but also very cost effective.
Yeah.
Because this is a budget photo frame that has had an invitation put in to look like a platinum record. But when you receive that, it's different from your carded invitation.
Yeah.
And it's not expensive to do, and it looks impressive.
Yeah. When you say it's not expensive to do, what does not expensive to do quantify as?
A budget photo frame, it can be anywhere between £2 and £3 for argument's sake.
Yeah.
And then it's just designing and putting your, your stamp on whatever you want to put in there. But,
so you're saying when you basically show your suite of goods.
Yeah.
And then someone says, oh, that's great. And then you say that's £12.
Yeah. So
Ahead.
there is that element of people going through and looking at stuff and whatnot. But we also try to make everything as bespoke as we can for every individual client.
Which I know is difficult because people
Very
see
difficult,
lots of things, don't they?
Yeah. And people see things
it's
and
easy
like
to
things
replicate.
and want to copy things. And that's another thing that's quite, with Pinterest, Instagram and all those sorts of things these days. They show you a photo of something. Now, when they show you a photo of something, sometimes it's not realistic because that's been staged. And the outcome of that photograph, and a prime example of this is when you're blind debossing into paper. In a photograph, it looks really deep. But actually, when you actually physically see something that's been pushed into paper, you've got to remember paper's only so thick and it can't go down that much before it rips.
Yeah.
So the illusion of the shadows and everything that's making it look deep, in realistic, it can't be that deep.
Yeah.
So they're underwhelmed when they see the finished product sometimes. That why is it not so deep?
Instagram versus reality.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we have this problem all the time.
Yeah.
So, there's fighting things like, but it's like Simone was saying earlier, expectations and saying if a font doesn't work, it's not working, I'd like to do this or like to do that. And we do exactly the same as that. We guide them, we tell them, we go through the whole process, telling them what can work, what can't work, and trying to meet their expectations.
We'll come back to the creativity of the stuff that you do and where it crosses over into my world as well. But Craig, I'm going to ask the same question of you. How do you deal with clients and budgets? Is it something you sort of get out on the table straight away to ascertain where you are?
Okay, so interestingly, my take on this has changed since COVID and during COVID. And I'll explain a little bit. Prior to COVID, it was never a question I felt comfortable asking. It's just, it never did me any harm because I've been busy, but it was never a question. I sort of, wouldn't go and have a meeting.
Well, no one wants to sit opposite somewhere. They say, how much are you looking to spend? No, nobody necessarily wants to sit and have that direct question.
But also, I don't think they know.
Yes.
I don't think anyone knows. And when they turn around and say, which I've had many, many times in the years, oh, but my best friend who used you told me they spent this much. That's when I am very honest and go, they're lying to you. That's not the truth. They didn't spend that. It's normally a lot lower, But the reason why my attitude has changed a little bit since COVID is during COVID.
Whilst you talk, I'm just going to flick through some of your events.
Absolutely fine. During COVID, we were doing a lot of virtual bar mitzvahs, and I'm quite confident to say that I think I was one of the first very quickly to get out there and actually do virtual. Purely, I had a bit of tech knowledge. I had a bit of kit already. We actually started as a company doing live streaming on a Sunday night, and we did quizzes. Which
I remember watching it. I was a viewer.
We did like 12 episodes of Lockdown Live, and it was really good fun. And that was quite very quick. We did that, and then a client came and said, "Oh, we've got a deposit with you." In fact, they didn't even say they were in the diary, and they were like, "We still have to do the bar mitzvah. We're doing it at home, the actual ceremony part. Can you come and do what you do in your house at ours?" And I hadn't even thought about it at that point. I was like, "Yeah, really easy." So I started doing that and not charging very much, and then that started to grow, which we saw over lockdown. A lot of these gift boxes going out, and I started to quote my clients on me prepping the gift boxes. And I suddenly realized that even though they knew that there was a bag of popcorn, a miniature can of Coke, a packet of Pringles, some other stationery that Darren had done for me, I realized that I couldn't make any money on it, but the time spent doing it. So I started charging a management fee on it. And all my clients were like, they completely got it. They were like, yeah, absolutely.
Well, time is money.
Yeah, correct. I never used to be like that. So now with regards to asking a client, I don't ask them if they have a budget. Like you said, I don't think you can sit across the room from someone, maybe someone that you've met for the first time, or you might have had a quick phone call on, can you come over and meet us? I think over 16 years of doing this, I've become quite good at kind of gauging a budget. And what can work. But there's, again, off the back of COVID, things have changed. They may have booked one of these sort of all-inclusive venues, and when they tell you that they've booked one of the, where you get the food, the drink, and the space, and the lighting, the production, and you might go, or maybe they don't have the budget. It's not necessarily. They actually can spend a bit more money with you on all the extras, the entertainment, the novelties, the T-shirts, the little finishing touches.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult thing to get out of people.
Because I think a comment you made at the beginning was clients don't know what things cost. And I think across the whole series, that's been what most of the planners have said. They really don't know.
100%. Darren, touch base on it with Pinterest is, you sit down and they've got a Pinterest folder of these pictures, whether it be a beautiful centerpiece of flowers or a flashing centerpiece or a big stage set with a huge video wall. No one has any idea how much that costs. Yeah. And I think it can be a shock to some people when you may quote them on it because, okay, this is what you like. And then you send a quote for everything and they're just like, hit the floor. Which they do. Yeah, and then they realize, and that could lose us the job because sometimes some people might not even come back to you.
So you don't even know why, you just assume.
No, you just assume until you see it, when you look in your diary on the date of the event a year later and realise that you're not doing it and someone else is. Yeah. But yeah, budget's a tough thing in the events world because it's their money.
Absolutely.
It's different working for a corporate client.
When someone's running a corporate checkout.
Correct.
Yeah.
100%.
We'll come to corporate later. Simone, for you, I guess in the grand scheme of an event, you're kind of at probably the smaller end of the scale of what people are spending.
We are the small, and we are the very last.
And the very last.
At which time, when everyone comes to us, we haven't got much money left.
Yeah, squeeze you on the novelties.
But they want everything.
But we do budget straight away. It's like when a client first comes to me and says, "Would you put a budget together?" Novelties and T-shirts
are in there.
Personalizations, 100% in there.
Yeah, and that's something you flipped into now, isn't it? Personalization, printing. So what sort of products are you doing?
So, obviously we started off with novelties and then we actually started doing more personalized novelties. So we could personalize something along the arm of a sunglass and on the lens of a sunglass.
And there's some of your products up there.
And then we were always getting asked for T-shirts and can we quote? And we then decided let's do it ourselves instead of outsourcing. So we invested, they were actually bananas we supplied to Man City.
Well, it's interesting because when you sent me this picture through, I didn't know
trying to work out what it was.
Well, yeah, I didn't know if it was flags.
Yeah, no, inflatable bananas.
Oh, it's bananas.
20,000 to Man City.
You sent 20,000 bananas to Man City.
Inflatable sharks. That was something to do with Mendy, I think, at the time.
Right.
And they put them on all the seats and... So then you've got like the photos. So you've got the novelties for photo booths.
Yeah.
You've got the novelties they give out at the end, which we used to have people come into our showroom. That's a real, daily basis.
There's your T-shirts.
That's T-shirts, hen nights, merchandise. You've got slippers, tote bags, T-shirts, wigs. We supplied with matching with hoodies. That was a corporate.
It's endless, isn't it?
It is endless. And so now what we do, people don't tend to come in. Since COVID, it's completely changed. People just don't like to leave the house, I don't think. So we do packs. So we would do a novelty pack for 100 people. And basically everything's in there. Then make it as easy for them as possible. We unwrap everything. We'll deliver it.
Sounds very labour intensive.
It is labour intensive, but
guess that's what you're paying for.
Keeps us fit.
Yeah, Darren, for you, we have a crossover, don't we? Because it would seem quite strange that we are very much digital. Yet through the years, we do work with you quite a lot, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We've done quite a few jobs together.
Let's have a look at. I know you brought one of the things we've worked on. Which one are you going to bring out first?
Yeah. So the one. This was recently, wasn't it? We did a right. So everyone got in the post basically a black box, and then you opened it up to just being a key.
That's right.
With a QR code, and so everyone. Firstly, it's this suspense of like. Oh, who's this from?
What's in the box?
What is it? Who's it from? What do I do here? And it stemmed from the family loving Tomorrowland.
That's right. So Tomorrowland,
which is a festival, like a dance festival that is just you're going into a world that a dream world, basically.
And so the idea was that they came to us with this Tomorrowland idea. We created this animation that's on screen. And the idea was they got delivered this physical invitation from you.
Yeah.
And as everybody knows from scanning their QR codes at COVID restaurants, everyone now knows how to do it. They would scan the QR code on the phone, which would then bring to life this animation that we made.
Which you did.
Of Tomorrowland. Which then,
which basically
told the story
and then pushed on the theme for the whole event, and that theme was Tomorrowland is a key, hence the key.
That's right. The sort of key to life. Turn the key. Yeah,
correct. And you based that story on that key.
We've got no audio on this, but actually, if anybody ever wants to ping me to have a listen to this, we've got the most unbelievable guy who does Gandalf as a voiceover. Yeah. So there's Gandalf. You can just
scan the QR code and watch it themselves.
Well, you could after scan the QR code, have a little watch. But there's the key. There's the key being shown. And so the things we've done in the past for you do really sort of bridge that physical to digital. I think the other one I've got in front of me here, which we don't do very many of these across the years, but perhaps if we just cut to my camera. So what we have here, this was Noah's invitation. Okay, our client wanted to do something a little bit different. They want to do something a little bit wow, but we also needed something a bit physical. So that's got Noah with a sort of what would you call that print?
It's like a graffiti print.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Graffiti print.
Oh, sorry, you mean the Spot UV?
Yeah, Spot UV. That's it. And then what happens is you open up this gorgeous box, and inside the box is a screen which then comes to life and shows a video. But importantly, inside here is the Perspex invitation you made.
That's right.
Okay, that's a little teaser video going. I'm just going to shut that box. But just talk me through. This is something you do quite a lot, don't you, throughout the years?
Yes, we do a lot, and it stems from right through from the invitation all the way through to event stationery. So we do things where we've done things before where we've done Perspex dog tags for all of the kids to have as their name places, and table numbers and menus being in Perspex and all sorts. So it can run right through an event.
What else have you brought over there?
So talking about Perspex, we've done a Perspex trainer before, and trainers being, all the young kids love their trainers at the moment.
And Craig, you're always involved in this sort of end of the sort of event journey. Do you just introduce Darren? Do you sit alongside him? How does it work?
There's been a couple of different ways we've worked over the last few years. I think majority is I think there's three, isn't there? There's the client may have already met with Darren or seen his work, and maybe Darren might even be already in the design process for it. And then the client will turn around to me, we're using
Invitation London.
Yeah, by that someone called Darren.
Someone called Darren. I get that as well.
I know him. I can call him.
And it's funny how there's no other Darren in invitations anywhere.
No, exactly.
In the UK that I found.
Sometimes it's either just Darren or it might be Invitation London, and I'll know exactly what they're talking about, which is actually quite a nice thing when you go, oh no, I've worked with them loads. Or I may have met with a client, and then I might come up with a couple of sort of ideas, and then go to Darren and say,
Darren, bring him out. Bring him out.
Can you turn this into something?
Yeah.
On the very, very rare occasion, I might give the actual design element a bit of a stab.
Okay. Pen and paper.
No, actually, like on Illustrator.
Oh, okay. You're that competent.
Oh, I've done many a tidy up of Craig.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, so I might actually end up. Sometimes a couple of times I've sent you a Photoshop file with the actual, everything's in place, but it's just all out of place, if that makes sense, from a finished product. And Darren will finish that and then continue to do the rest of the stationery.
Sorry, adding to that, I think people underestimate the what we bring to the event. Because a lot of the photos that you've been showing of the event room, the logo is bringing the room to life.
100%.
So what we create sometimes stems what can go on and what happened, and so sometimes we're brought in too late. But if we're brought in at the beginning of the process, we can help with how it pans out.
Also, I know from our perspective, when we work with stationery companies, and especially with yourself, we'll follow that theme through to the film.
Exactly.
It may be that the color palette from your Nike trainer that you're holding there. Does it say Nike or Mikey? What does it say?
It says Noah.
Noah. There you go. No, I would imagine trainers, obviously sneakers, are extremely popular. But we'll follow that through. We'll animate those logos. That's something we've done for you as well, Craig, across the years. What's the McDonald's?
Right. So the McDonald's thing is, again, just a fun little novel thing that a caterer may or the event planner may suggest that we can do a little chip stall if the kid loves
bit of food theming.
Yeah, just something a bit of fun and bringing it to life a bit, and just rather than chips in a box or a plate or making it fun. And we can brand these, and We make them, and then they, put whatever.
And
food
the Perspex Rainbow, that was from 2016.
That correct?
Yeah, is that the menu?
That is the menu that went onto the table.
Yeah, perhaps hold that up just a little bit to your camera.
Oh.
So, yeah, there we go. So that was a menu that was on the table. So
correct. It's the event that you and Aaron were showing.
Yeah, Claridge's.
The Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, you saw like from those photos everything that was going on with the lights and everything, and
everything
just bringing a bit of colour to the table. That's again something a little bit fun.
Yeah, Craig, how do you find creativity week in, week out for your events? How do you make things just a little bit different?
I think a lot of it comes from the client sometimes, as in they may come to us and say, I don't think not every client comes to us and says, I'm starting from scratch. A lot of our clientele may already have, like I said, they may already have
the Pinterest board.
Yeah, or a logo, or they've seen, which I get a lot, I'm sure everybody does, where they've almost taken a picture of an invitation for the similar sort of event and come to us and go, we like this, but we want to change the colours and change the logo. So you kind of are starting from scratch. But I don't mind the creativity side of things. I've always been a creative. If I'm honest with you, sometimes the hardest part of being creative is selling that You've got to sell that to your client. You might think it's the best creative idea.
Well, that comes down to trust as well. People need to trust the people they're working with.
100%. But at the same time, it's their money that they saved for this event.
Absolutely.
And it might just be a little bit of them that might just not get it or don't see the value in it. And that can be quite deflating sometimes, especially if you've, trying to figure out Photoshop by doing a design before going to see Darren, and then they go, no, we hate it.
I think I said on a previous pod that if we were paid by the hour.
Oh God.
So I had this conversation currently.
It would be incredible, the amount of hours we put in on work.
Yeah. We'd be in the minus. I genuinely believe we'd be in the minus. There's many occasions where at the Events Factory, as my company, we might just be providing a disco, couple of entertainers, maybe we've put them, Simone's Way, Novelties Direct, but that might be it. I think the expectations from that is you still potentially could be working with these clients for a year and a half, lots of phone calls, lots of meetings. And if you actually took it into broke it down into the hours, you would not be making any money.
Yeah.
If you were being charged by the hour.
Do you think there's maybe a little evolution coming forward in events? I mean, I feel like COVID did change things slightly. I feel like lead times now have shortened dramatically. Yeah. And I think we're just starting to see the green shoots of events being booked a little bit further out now that we get to, hopefully, COVID way in the rearview mirror. But I have never worked in an environment where people come to us with 6 weeks to go and say, right, hi, 6 weeks, we're all organised, we now want a music video.
Yeah, I used to be able to look at the diary 2 to 3 years in advance and see it packed full of good solid inquiries and also a high percentage of confirmed events. So we're talking about a really small deposit just for me to close the day off. Now, if I was to look forward to 24, 25, it's not solid, not worried about it. Because like you said, the lead time is so much shorter. Even you're talking about maybe like a surprise video lead time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying
the full event.
Yeah.
I don't think just this past, I know we're only on, what day is it? Wednesday today?
Yeah.
Wednesday. But this week I've had 2 inquiries one for September and one for October for this year.
Right. Okay. Well, that almost feels good.
No, it does. But that's, that's
a marked difference.
That's a big difference to years ago.
Yeah.
We're the same for us. I mean, we're getting T-shirt at the events in 2 weeks' time. Can you print T-shirts?
Well, not just the events T-shirts, but I was thinking China supply chain and COVID must have absolutely played havoc with you. How have you coped with that?
Well, I mean, apart from getting stuff, the cost of shipping, I mean, it went through the roof. And so we had to find new suppliers, UK suppliers. We had to tell, we just can't get certain things in stock anymore.
Just literally
just
physically
literally
nothing.
can't get, and if we can, it's taken so long to get. But I think everybody in whatever industry is, you go to the supermarket, there's empty shelves. There is, a nightmare with getting stuff.
Yeah,
from
but
anywhere.
you can't tell
Anything.
you can't tell clients you've got an empty
But
shelf.
we can't tell the
Yeah.
client. They don't understand.
No.
With your short lead time of people ordering
Yeah.
t-shirts 2 weeks, or 2 weeks,
Yeah.
is that direct clients or is
Direct.
that event companies?
Direct clients.
Okay.
I find it with very rare companies tend to be direct clients for t-shirts, novelties. We do actually we rent out the big Israeli flag, and that we will find people week of the function.
Just need one.
The problem with during COVID, we printed t-shirts for people with dates of the function, and the functions were cancelled. And we tried during COVID to say to people, don't put your date on your t-shirts. We printed 100 t-shirts for somebody. The event was cancelled. 6 weeks later, we had to reprint them. And I said, please don't put the date on. No. It's, whatever happens, it's still happening. So we reprinted another 100 t-shirts.
Well, fingers crossed those days are long behind us now. I mean,
Hopefully,
I hope so for everybody, because you must have had a nightmare with that as well, Darren.
Yeah, so obviously, like we adapted. So invitations were printed, and then we went on to the whole what I call Zoom mitzvah phase, where
I kept you pretty busy with that,
you did, yes.
That's good.
Thank you. The designing of a logo, digital invitation, and all of that, paperless post, like Craig was saying, the boxes that we were helping with the boxes and all of that sort of stuff, and that got us through. But the thing that's massively changed for us now is that the bar and bat mitzvah stage or invitation or whatever is staying digital.
Yes,
they're not really printing them anymore. They are, some are, and please carry on. but it is digital, so it is. Can you help with a logo, digital invitation, set it all up in paperless post, and then so that's where we've adapted to that side of things.
But I mean, being creative and creating stuff it's
no different.
Yeah,
it's designing an invitation to save it as a JPEG or print it. Yeah. So it makes no difference to us really. It's just that we're not printing it. That's all.
I found we've done a lot more website invitations now.
Yeah.
Over the years, we've always done them around maybe some very, very big events, like a big 3-day wedding in Italy, where people can go to destination and find all their details.
And that's another thing
that's
more
changed. And more the website.
Sorry, that's another thing that's changed in the sense of wedding people are still printing invitations, but there's no such thing as a reply card anymore. It is a website with a RSVP and all of the details of their gift list and all of those sorts of bits.
Yeah. Craig, is there one rule you live by within your business at the Events Factory?
Adaptability is a huge rule. I'm always, as much as I love doing what I do, week in, week out, I'm always open to other ideas and concepts, especially ones that we can bring into the events world as such. And I'm not scared of delving into a different direction, grabbing something and bringing it in, which I have done a couple of times, I think, over the years. Xylo bands was a massive one.
Yes, I did have a picture of that somewhere.
It was an absolutely huge one.
It is on there somewhere, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
There you go.
That was recently. They've actually just come back in recently. But in 2012, Coldplay did a performance on the X Factor final at Wembley. It would have been actually the end of 2011, I think. And the whole audience at Wembley, had these wristbands, and you would go on Twitter. No one was talking about the final. No one was talking about who won it. No one was talking about anything else that happened. Anything on Twitter was all about these flashing wristbands because they were in sync with the music. And I actually had a call the next day from a client of mine who I'd already done one event for, and I had the next one coming up in July of 2012. And she said, "Did you watch the X Factor final?" And at that point, I think everyone was still pretty much watching it. And I said, "Yes." You're talking about the wristband. She was like, "Yeah." She goes, "I want them for my client." I was like, I don't know. No one had heard of them. No one had used them. It was the first time. I managed to track down via Twitter who the inventor was, because it wasn't Coldplay. We found him. I think I must have sent 20, 30 emails to him saying, "Hey, I run a private events company. I've got an inquiry for 150 units in 6 months' time." Never heard anything. Finally, I think about 4 or 5 weeks later, I got a phone call from him, and he was like, "I'm really sorry. I've been really busy, sitting on leads, etc., etc. But if you want them, we'll make it work." So we didn't speak for a few months. Finally managed to get them. posted a video very similar to the one that you just showed. And they then contacted me on the Monday after the event and said, we've got 7,500 inquiries through our website, and most of them that are coming through are all for small events of like 100 to a couple of thousand. Currently at the moment with Coldplay, we're only concentrating on events with like 30, 40,000 plus. Do you want these leads?
Oh,
I was still working on my own at that point. So I thought, yeah, I'll take a punt. So I did. They sent me we went and met them. They gave me this folder. It was about this thick of printout emails. Some were very old by this point because it was probably towards the end of the year of 2012. And then I brought in a good friend of mine. He came to work for me. We went through all the leads, and a lot came back with like, yeah, we've been desperately trying to get them. And we were, honestly, for about 2.5 years, I traveled everywhere doing them. Didn't affect any other work, but we were shipping out 5, 10, 15,000.
You're quite entrepreneurial, aren't you?
Yeah, I think it keeps me.
What about this one? Mr. Yo-Yo Man.
I'm not in this video.
No, I know you're
this
not
was
in
a
it,
great video.
but you came. Thank you very much.
This was a really good video.
You came to me and said, Gavin, can you make a video about my yo-yo world champion because I'm selling yo-yos? Or you had the license to distribute or something.
Yeah, so this company, Yo-Yo Factory, is owned by one of my best friends.
Right.
That is, he lives out in Arizona. And you remember going back at the start of the podcast, I mentioned about...
The logo looks very similar to yours.
It does look very similar. There's a reason for that. We won't go into that right now. But the... when I was working at Hamleys, I met an Australian yo-yo champion they brought in to sell some yo-yos. And we actually we were the same age. He was on his own in this country. We just became really good friends. He taught me how to do some yo-yo tricks. And this is before events, obviously. And I ended up traveling around the world playing with a yo-yo, teaching kids how to play yo-yo for about 2 years. All my friends went off to university. And I went traveling around the world, spent a lot of time in Arizona teaching kids how to play with the yo-yo. And since then, I still distribute that brand of yo-yos in the UK. So I have the license to sell. So we've got a website that we sell yo-yos on. Not great for events because it could be very dangerous.
Yeah,
a lot of window breakages.
I'm sure it would be.
But yeah, so that's
amazing.
So yeah, maybe entrepreneurial. Yeah,
very.
That.
Darren, one of the questions I'm asking all my guests on the podcast is about managing expectations. How do you manage expectations with your clients?
Good question. Right. So the most amount of direction that they can give us in an initial meeting or the first couple of meetings that we have helps massively, because it means that we can come up with ideas and come up with concepts and whatever the case may be, and then you're managing their expectations from the off, because you're not going in with your first initial ideas blind. Because then
so you produce draft one, and the client looks at it and says, "Oh no, sorry, in my head, it looked totally different. Sorry about that. I hate that."
That's it.
What happens then?
And then we would go back to round 2 and start again. But that to avoid that, that's why we try and get now it's a Zoom meeting for argument's sake, and you sit there and you show stuff and they show you stuff and you go things, so that you both got kind of an idea or a gist of the direction that the client wants to go in, so that when you're doing round 1 of logos or whatever the case may be, they're not too disheartened.
Sure. And Craig, same sort of question to you. How do you manage people's expectations?
I think it's a bit different for me because I do most of my clients in-house with me doing it will get a CAD drawing of their room. So they actually get to see a visual of their room. I don't outsource that. I'm not the best at it, but they are, I'd say some of them are really, really good that I do. So the client sort of knows pretty much what they're walking into. You still get a wow when they walk in, which is my favorite thing to do at an event. And I always, there's two things
when they come through the door.
Well, there's 2 things that I'll do at an event. One is obviously walk in with my clients to a room when they first go in, because I want,
special moment.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, even if they hate it, they're never going to pretend they hate it, because the video guy's following them at that point, aren't you? But luckily, I think most of my clients have told the truth.
I'm going to say, in 13 years,
wow.
I don't think I've ever seen that. A client walk into a room and go,
I hate it.
Sorry, what happened here?
Yeah, can we change this?
Yeah.
And the other second thing I love doing is actually when guests walk into the room. I like to be near a door where guests are walking in because I like to see and hear reactions of the clients, because that's what they've almost spent the money on, right?
Absolutely, it's the wow factor.
As much as everyone's putting on an event for whether it be their company or whether they're, you know, for a wedding or for bar mitzvah or engagement, 21st, they're spending the money for the attraction of the party.
Sure.
For their guests
and let's say it, I mean, outside of, you know, buying a house, a car, these are very big ticket items, these
they're
parties.
huge. It's
at
huge.
Whatever level.
Yeah, even I'm not going to say the word basic, but even, you know, the 100 guests in a small hall, it's still a huge amount of money, and you know, I think the client deserves to know what they're getting for their money as well, which is very important.
Now, one thing I've asked everybody on the podcast this series the same question, and I've got a funny feeling your answer is going to be slightly different. At least I think it is. Do you suffer from event anxiety?
No.
Yeah, I got that right. I don't think you do. I don't think I've ever seen or felt you nervous at the start of an event. You're always very, very... I mean, calm on the outside, and you look calm on the inside.
Yeah, I think I touched on this earlier. I think my wife would probably disagree with me, but maybe only 24 hours before. But on the event day itself, so let's say 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm quite chilled. I am always quite... I work with a really good team of people.
That's the importance.
And
yeah,
I think things have changed massively over the years, whereas... I'll be honest. There was one event where there was a misdelivery of chairs.
Well, that was going to be my next question, actually. How do you cope with adversity? Things going wrong. So a misdelivery of chairs.
So there was a misdelivery of chairs. No one's fault. Well, obviously the chair company, don't use them anymore. But they delivered. It was a table and a half, so 12, maybe about 15 chairs were not delivered. And it was also in a space where we couldn't get into until about an hour and a half to 2 hours before the event started. So by the time the chairs had been delivered and, you know, stacked up to be counted and noticed that there's missing, we literally had maybe an hour and 45 minutes before the guests were in that room.
And what did you do at that point?
And it was a Saturday night, and it was 6 o'clock on a Saturday night. Between myself and one of the other suppliers on site, we called around everybody. So we all chipped in, everyone chipped in, and we managed to find, and I sent a driver to go and get, I think it was about 14 chairs. But I was always quite relaxed at that point.
Very important to be relaxed to your client.
Yeah, I put my phone down at one point in a really dark room and lost my phone. I was more stressed about that than the chairs, because the chairs I knew were coming, like as in we sorted it. But the most important thing about that, the client never knew.
Yeah,
she would have had no difference. Even to be fair, even if the chairs were slightly different, you know, I don't think she wouldn't have known. We would have done everything we could to make it so that she would, you know, I would have told her afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably one of the most stressful, but...
Well, if that's the most stressful, I've got to tell you,
No,
I
it
think you've
is.
had a pretty good run.
I think so. I think we've had the normal that everyone else has had, like, you know, a fire alarm going off,
Yes.
or a power cut from our favourite sound limiters.
Yes, that also happens.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Discuss sound limiters on this podcast?
No, but we can do that, actually.
No, don't. They're
sure?
horrible things, those.
Well, for those that don't know, let's explain, because actually on, I think one of the episodes we talk about venues with sound limiters and how they then become unpopular. But let's talk about that. What happens?
So a lot of venues would have probably in the past had events where they've probably been too loud, and then the council have got involved, and then in order for them to keep their license, they say you have to have a sound limiter in. It's normally a white box with a what do you call it? Visualizer. Is it a visualizer? Where it goes from like green, yellow, red.
Yeah.
Like.
What's it? An equalizer.
An equalizer.
Right. So So in the venue, they'd have
a box with an equalizer on it, with the lights, green, yellow, orange to red. If it hits, most of them, if it stays in red, so if the DJ or the band hit a certain level, and every venue could have a different limit set.
Level.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And if it normally it's between 10 and 20 seconds, if it stays in red, it will cut the power to the sound.
Horrific.
Which it's a horrible thing, and I'm not going to lie and say it
doesn't happen.
It's rare. No, it's happened quite a lot. Not recently, but certainly when I was starting out, it would happen, and more venues are putting them in.
Well, especially if they're in residential areas,
or
around residential areas.
I've learned, and some other people, in this world probably have figured out there is a way still that you could have a pretty decent party with a sound limiter, and actually it's on the bass. You just have to turn the bass down because the bass is what's really traveling and making it. But we've had it where we've been at a really decent level, and when you get 150, 200 people singing along to a popular song, it's actually that's knocking out the sound.
Yeah, it's the noise of the crowd.
So but that's not something to get stressed about. That's something that you just go and fix.
Sure.
Same with smoke alarms. The quickest thing you can do if it's gone off because there's something in the kitchen is you just jump along and make sure there's nothing terrible, and then the venue will deal with it.
Sitting around the table, what do we think are the top 3 pieces of advice we could give to viewers or listeners of the podcast on organising their first event?
My main one is to meet with as many people as you feel necessary. I'm totally open to that. I leave a lot of clients actually after the first meeting. If it's just an inquiry meeting, like as in nothing's been signed, they just go, "Can we meet with you?" I actually tell them, my last bit of advice for them is, "Hey, feel free to go and speak with other planners." I'm happy to take that risk.
It's interesting you say that because I do exactly the same.
Yeah, I'm genuinely happy to take that risk. I think within the market that we've been discussing, the private world, which is always, I think within the private market, we have to accept that it's quite a localized market.
Sure.
People don't go too far-fetched, and I think a lot of us, from a physical element of a party, whether it be production and stuff like that, we all do offer very similar stuff. Meet with the person that you feel the most that you're happy to spend the money with, or who you think is going to spend your money well.
Yeah.
That's my number one.
Right, number one. Anybody want to throw in a number 2?
For me, it's working out where you want to spend where you would like to spend your money
within the party,
and what's important to you. Because some people, look, an invitation might not be your number one, but it is the first thing that people receive to the event.
It sets the tone sometimes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So not that I'm saying you have to spend lots of money on it, but decide which areas you would like to spend.
Yeah.
More money in and less money in.
I would say time.
And what's important to you? Yeah.
Time
as well.
Give yourself time. Don't feel the more time you can give yourself to plan and think and have meetings, just the better the outcome will be, across the board. And trust, I think, is a really important one.
Trust, which again is very similar to the first one, right? You want to go back to the person that you think and
but I think trust. If you're engaging with a planner, and that planner brings with him a host of suppliers that he knows, loves, and works with, and it's important to him that you need to trust that he's bringing the right team to you, to do your job, rather than maybe questioning, some of the decisions made.
It's 100% about that as well, because I used, again, starting out, I probably had one supplier for production. And when I talk about production, I'm talking about stage, sound, lighting, set builds, that sort of thing. Whereas now I go and have a meeting with a client, I sign with a client, talk to them, and by the time you've signed, you've kind of got an idea of budget and where they want to go at, and also what they want and what they see is important to them. Someone might think that they don't necessarily want to spend a huge amount of money on production because they want to throw more money at entertainment because they see the value in the entertainment over the production. Some clients will turn around and say that they really want to walk into a room that is wow, and they'll spend thousands of pounds doing that, but they won't spend £200 on
novelties.
Some novelties.
A t-shirt with someone's name on.
So Whereas now, like I said, I will go and meet with someone, I'll sign with someone, and I'll decide who I want to use that's going to do the best job and give my client the best value.
But you've got years of experience to make those calls as well. I mean, that's what they're buying. They're buying your experience.
I hope that they see it that way.
Yeah. We got some questions in from Instagram. Okay, we put out a little call.
I know Instagram.
Okay,
I've seen
let's
that.
have a little look. Sheena B, why do some DJs not speak? Craig, you're quite qualified to answer that because you have been known to DJ and you do speak. Don't you?
I don't actually DJ a huge amount.
No, I know you don't now.
No, but still,
I've seen you.
but even back in the day, I wasn't. I was always. This goes back to how I first fell into the events world, which was the company. They're no longer around, unfortunately, but Mobsters were probably one of the first. Simone was involved. Were you? Do you remember? I mean,
I remember it, yeah.
Mobsters. What's the right word? I would say Mobsters created quite a lot of the event planners in this market now. At some point, they would have DJ'd or MC'd for Mobsters.
Really? I would say Banana Split did.
I don't know. I think Mobsters are...
I think the slightly younger generation.
I think Mobsters came along and
the...
it didn't matter. Mobsters was an outfit, right? So they could do 4, 5, 6 parties a night and you'd have a DJ who never spoke. Never. Head down. They danced a little bit. And then you had the MC. But it was no one ever called it an MC. It was just
Bradley Collins of
it was
this
two
world.
DJs. There was, if you think about it, there's I'm going to name a few. Some of them have either been on or are coming on. Laurie Whitescorn, Mobsters. Jamie Simon of Banana Split, Mobsters. Another guy called James Alexander, not too sure what happened to him. Mobsters. Bradley Collins, Mobsters. Myself, we were like...
Then definitely it's a generational thing, because at my generation it was always Banana Split.
So there you go. So maybe...
My generation was definitely Mobsters,
So I think...
So the question was,
why do DJs not speak? Not everyone's a performer. DJs are into their music. They love mixing. They love music, but they might not step in front of a crowd and say anything. I'm very comfortable with it.
Yeah. I just feel if I was hiring a
DJ
DJ for a party, maybe I'd want them to just do everything, to be able to have the personality.
Yeah, and there are some out there.
There
are definitely some out there, but I think that goes for celebrity DJs.
Yes, they don't say a word.
But they don't say a word, or they do say a word, but they don't really DJ. They've got they've got a DJ friend that's put a DJ set together, and they're the hype man.
Okay, I thought you were the ones who stand there just giving it all this.
But there's lots of those. There's lots of those.
Next question up. What's your favourite thing about being an event planner?
Variety. Not just because you're an event planner doesn't mean you have to plan an event that's exactly the same every time. So it's not like going to mundane, no offense, Monday to Friday, 9 till 5 job. Sometimes I will have a bunch of evening meetings, so I won't work in the morning. Or I'll finish early because I know I'm working Saturday and Sunday. For me, the most important one is I get on most weekends, I think we've discussed this before, most weekends I get to, if I'm emceeing an event as well as planning, which I do offer, I get to stand and watch 150 plus people having the best time of their lives by enjoying food
for the soul, that is, isn't it?
I honestly, it is the best thing. Whenever I see someone who doesn't look very happy at one of my events, it might just be a kid over in the corner, I will try and say something to that person just to get them on the dance floor. I'm not talking about on the microphone either. I'm just talking about
just sidle up to them,
walking past and being like, hey, like, why don't you go on the dance floor? Your mates are on there. So for me, it's having that little bit of elevated status by standing on, maybe behind the DJ booth for a second, or if there's a band on stage, and just watching people having the best time. It's the
way
best
too
thing.
Relaxed. You're way too relaxed. Next question up. How much time would ideally you like to plan someone's wedding? Wedding's not a big feature for you, is it?
I don't do a huge amount of weddings.
No. So let's just call that events.
But I would
How much
imagine.
time would you like to have?
Again, you've just said it. I'm quite relaxed. Like, I'm quite happy to plan something in 4 weeks. We did an event at the back end of December that came in 5 weeks beforehand with nothing. Nothing was booked.
And that was
5 weeks.
Pretty sensational lineup, as I remember, wasn't it?
It was all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah,
we allowed to say?
Not really, but we had a 10-piece band. We had 2 celebrity acts, both with challenges. Again, I was quite relaxed about the challenges. It was quite daunting to the client, but I was quite relaxed about it. Full production, menus, hotel was booked, invitation design. Unfortunately didn't use Darren for that one.
Darren just want to add in.
I did print all the menus.
I tell a lie. Yeah, excuse me. No, that's a lie.
I didn't get the call either.
And that's another thing I'd just like to say is like, even though I do invitations, it's not necessarily that I have to design it to print it.
Yeah, actually, I completely got it. Darren ended up doing the escort cards for me, the menus, the table numbers for me.
You did quite a lot then, Darren.
He did. He just didn't do the design element of the logo. Yeah. You know, everything else, the menu and everything was all done.
With 5 weeks to go. How competitive is the pricing of events? Are you always up against the same planners?
Yep.
You just want to leave it there? Well, how competitive is it? Is my price? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, currently it is right now. And I think going back a few years, I might have been a bit scared and sort of be like, oh, I can knock something off here. Now I'm a bit older. I've got 3 kids. You know,
situations change.
And time is money, like you said before. So now my price is my price. But I work hard. I've changed the way I work, like I said now. So a lot of my clients, I charge a management fee.
Well, I think that's knowing your value.
Yeah.
I think that...
No, I have. I'm happy. I don't mind telling people, but I charge a management fee and I charge a percentage, and then everything else is done at cost.
Yeah.
Which is, again, something since COVID. People and clients love transparency.
Well, I think they've always loved transparency. It's something that's never been very apparent in the events market, and I feel like it very much is there now. Also, clients are savvy. Clients have the internet, and they can make a phone call.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you are, I think, with all planners and with all walks of life, you are buying the 20 plus years or whatever it is of mistakes that have been made for people to learn to carry that forward.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%.
This is for a whole nother podcast episode, Craig, but just to say also, I'm just going to touch on it, but you're very much involved with a new setup a couple of years ago, Hat-Trick Creative.
Yep.
Which we will say for another time, because I'd like to get all 3 of you on.
That's a full episode.
But just tell everybody the other business you're involved with. Through some of the stuff.
So I'm a director at a company called Hat-Trick Creative, which is another event company that was formed myself, a gentleman called Nick Einhorn, and a good friend of ours, Katrina Flavel. We've all known each other for a very, very long time. And just to give you a very brief story, but Nick is one of the world's best magicians. So I've known him as a friend for a very, very long time. He's also been the resident magician at Tottenham Hotspur.
Which was some of those pictures flashing through.
Which was Tottenham. He's been the resident magician on a match day for 25 years. And when they built the new stadium, or they were thinking about building a new stadium, they approached him about potentially providing entertainment on a bigger scale. And then he approached me and said, I'm going to pitch for it. Do you want to come in? I looked at the brief and said, this is bigger than 2 of us, but I know the perfect person.
And we'll save the rest for another episode. Just like to say to all of you, thank you so much for coming in and joining me today on the Secret World of Events. It's been great having you.
Thanks,
we could have literally sat here and chatted for another 2.5 hours. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. And importantly, if you're listening on a podcast, please do give us some feedback. We'd love to hear what you have to say about the show. And so until next time, we'll see you soon. Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that? The expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail.